Rev up your engines! Well, Toyota changed their mind. They said they're going to replace the engine in that guy's GR86 where the engine blew up. He was driving it around and the engine blew up. And then they said, well, they're not going to cover it because he was racing it around. Well, he wasn't racing. It was more play stuff. It wasn't a professional race going as fast as you can on a circle, right? And it seems that they have some kind of a problem with the silicone gaskets breaking off and then clogging up the intake on the oil pump. And then there's no oil pressure. And it goes, when you don't have any oil pressure, right? Well, they decided they're going to fix this guy's engine. They haven't admitted to anything, and they didn't make a recall yet. If any of you people have one of these out there, realize the GR86 is not a Toyota. It is a Subaru. It's a Subaru engine. It's made by Subaru. It's not made by Toyota. That's probably one of the reasons Toyota didn't want to start replacing them, because they don't even make the engine. Subaru does. Subaru makes the whole car. Instead of the $11,000 this guy would shell out for another engine, they are giving him another engine on his GR86. But, like I said, Toyota hasn't put out any technical service bulletins or any kind of recall yet, so we'll see what goes on. And to me, this is something that worries me. Toyota's putting their name on it. Their reputation is on a car that they don't even make. Subaru's making the car. And obviously, Subaru screwed up making the car. I've never seen Toyota build their own engines and have problems with the silicone getting inside. No, but this is a Subaru. So I warn you, do a little research before you buy a car. You might be getting something that you're paying for that isn't what you think it is. A Toyota that's really a Subaru. E. Oliver 65 says, I just had the rear main seal replaced my old Ford Explorer. Now I hear a knocking sound. What could it be? Take it back. Who knows what those people did. To replace the rear main seal, you either have to pull the engine out and take the seal out, or it's quicker, but it's still a gigantic job. You have to pull the transmission off. They could have screwed up so many things. They might not have bolted the engine to the transmission. It could be the flywheel knocking against the side of the transmission. Could be lots of things. Take it back. Whoever did it did a crappy job, screwed something up, and take it back immediately. A big job like that, before you pay the guy, say, I want to road test it. You road test it. You hear a noise, take it back and say, you didn't fix it. I'm not paying you until you fix it. Because once you pay people, they have a real tendency of not wanting to spend money taking your car apart again, especially if they have to pull the transmission off again, but it's their fault for screwing up, so take it back. But like I say, a good thing for everybody is you get a big job like that where they're pulling off the transmission or the engine. Road test it before you pay for anything, because they could have screwed a lot of stuff up. Danger Snack says, can I supercharge my 8th generation Civic? Hey, I'm a longtime fan from Houston. Could I safely supercharge my 2011 Honda Civic? It's got 1.8 liter, and it's got 100K. I take care of it, but I want a little more zip. Well, Honda does make excellent engines. Realize you supercharge, you do get an awful lot of extra power. You also strain the engine. But Honda engines generally can take it. They're pretty well-made engines. But on the other hand, look into what the whole cost of putting a supercharger on is. You might not want to spend that kind of money. But Honda does make some of the best engines in the world, so it probably would hold up quite well. Just realize it's going to be a relatively expensive endeavor to do it correctly. Have things reprogrammed to accept the supercharger. It's as simple as bolt and go. There's a lot of stuff's got to be changed. It's not a simple thing to do. Stuff says, how can you make a catalytic converter theft-proof? My husband had it stolen from his 2003 Honda 3 times. What are the best cars where it's hard to steal them? Well, the problem is any professional thief is going to steal anything off of anything they want. They just use oxygen acetylene torches and they'll cut them off. Doesn't matter what you do. You could put a cover on, they'll cut that off too. What you want to do is keep the kids where they're just going to be bolting them off, right? So you can get catalytic converter covers that cover all that off, and they can't bolt it off. Then they're going to go to the next car that's easier to do. And of course, you'd want to stay away from buying a car that has a big cat that's worth money, like a Toyota Prius has a very expensive catalytic converter. And when they're stolen, they get more money for them, so they'll steal the Prius ones first. So stay away from Priuses if you're worried about having to put catalytic converters on. The thieves are going to steal anything if they really want to. The most important thing is to park your car, like in the garage, where they can't get to it, or have a nice alarm that when they jack it up, it starts going boo-doo, boo-doo, and it warns people and they're going to go away. You want to prevent them from getting under your car in the first place. Or if you have a dog, perhaps have the dog staked out near the car so it will either bite them or bark like mad when they come to steal your catalytic converter. Because anybody can steal anything. You can't stop them. A pro with a torch is going to just cut it off. You know, they get as hot as the surface of the sun, the acetylene oxygen torch, so they're going to cut through any kind of device you put on it anyway. Turtleman says, what are your thoughts on subcompact SUV? SUVs. Which are the best? Honda HR-V, Toyota CHR, Mazda CX-30, Subaru Crosstrek. What do you think? The Toyota CHR and the Honda HR-V are the best subcompact ones in the United States. Which one do you like better? I'm a Toyota man. I like the Toyotas, but the Honda HR-Vs are fine for going around. Just realize that for a Honda, the HR-Vs are kind of underpowered engines. I guess they wanted to get better gas mileage. They're a little bit underpowered. Realize one thing. You're talking about subcompact, right? Not big ones, but subcompacts. And generally, the subcompacts all have relatively smaller engines. So they're not going to have the acceleration of a Toyota Camry or a Honda Accord, especially with automatics. They're not the zippiest things, but out of those, the Toyotas and Hondas are the best ones in the United States. The rest of the world, they sell all kinds of brands. It's insane. Everything's subcompact, like in Singapore. That's why everybody drives, because the cars cost so much and there's no space. But in the United States, it'd be those two. Bob Adams says, I got a 2002 Subaru. The alternator voltage is too high. My old alternator put out 15.5. I changed the voltage regulator, and then it was 16.5. I bought a new alternator. It's putting out 16.5. What can I do? First thing, if I were you, I would have your battery tested. If your battery is really weak, the alternator can have a tendency of overcharging it because it's a crappy battery. Check that. Now, if it's not that, there's only two things it can be. Either you got a wiring problem or you're just getting bad alternators. If your wiring is either loose or corroded, it takes a lot more power to get through a corroded or loose connector, and so you could see stuff like that. So you could have bad wiring. More often, it's just a bad alternator itself. The alternators aren't supposed to put out, more than like 14.5 volts or so. If they're not made right, the diodes aren't right, whatever. Now, I'm assuming you're buying remanufactured alternators, right? Not always the greatest idea, because they're remanufactured. A lot of times they're remanufactured in Mexico or China, and they're garbage. You're better off buying an original OEM brand new alternator. I've had customers buy alternators. I had one guy with a Nissan. He bought 6 alternators at an O'Reilly Auto Parts store. I kept putting them on, but I said, look, why don't we just go get an OEM one? He did, and then it fixed all the problems, and away he went. So it could easily be just the alternator. Have a guy like me test it with his equipment. He could tell you. I don't know how accurate your equipment is, but mine's extremely accurate. And I have like 4 or 5 really accurate ones, so I think this is really weird. I'll try one of the other ones. And if it gives the same reading, then I know for sure that that's the problem. Jack says, what's this weird airbox thing in my car? I looked under my Nissan Quest, and there's a funky box the air goes through. What is that thing? It's more or less resonator. They don't want cars to make too much noise. So they found out that on the air intake, if they make a certain size box, that it will quiet the noise down. That's why when you see guys that soup up their cars, you hear them really loud. Well, if you open up the air box and make it direct to the air, then when your engine's sucking air in, you can hear the valve somewhat, and the engine's a lot louder. In England, it's against the law. They can get you for making too much noise by doing it. Everybody's more and more these days into quiet cars. They want it quiet. Well, that's just a way of making a little car a little bit less noisy, and they will make a lot less noise if they have a resonator in the air intake. And it's also set up with the mass airflow sensor in the computer. You take it off, it might not run correctly because it's set up for the airflow. The computer knows it's there, and it compensates for stuff. If you take it off, it might start running squirrely. You might get a check engine light come on. Shipwreck says, I blew a fuse replacing my lights. I know I screwed up. I blew a fuse, replacing my interior lights. The owner manual doesn't do a good job on what controls what. Everything works but my key fob to the car and my interior lights. What fuse should I check? On a 2019 Impreza. All right. First, realize cars have numerous fuse boxes. Some have 3 or 4 different ones. So find all your fuse boxes. And testing fuses is quite simple. All you got to do is pull the fuse out and then look at the sun. And if you see the metal is continuous, it's not blown. If it's broken, it's blown, and put another one in. It's that simple. You just have to find all your fuse boxes. And they're all over the place. They're under the hood, some of them are under the dash, some of them are in the passenger kick panels, and then you can just check them all. And if you do have a test light, it's even faster. Then you would start the car and let it run. And with the test light, you just touch both sides. You touch one side, there's power. The other side, there isn't. That means the fuse is blown. If you do have a test light, it's even faster. You don't have to pull them out. Then you can just on. If they're on, and when one side's on and one's off, that fuse is blown. That's the fastest way of checking them. You can get a test light for like $5 at an auto parts stores. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.